Hi there, traders. This is Brad Gilbert with the FX Market Insight for the 1st of March. All right, now let's have a look at what's going on now. Coming out of the North American session, you really want to tune into what the US dollar is doing now. As you can see, we've got the US dollar index here, a nice little bounce to the top side, coming back to test that resistance line around 96.30. Now, the catalyst, to me, well, the second GD estimate was much better than expected. Like 0.3% on a GDP it's pretty big, getting into the bigger part of variance, and that's really given the US dollar a shot in the arm. Now, just having a look at the dollar yuan while we're here, the weaker manufacturing numbers yesterday have seen dollar yuan move to the top side. So that moves with the strong dollar and a weaker Chinese yuan. So we've got some CACs and manufacturing numbers out today out of China. That could be, if they're negative, I'll tell you what, there's a whole bunch of negative numbers coming out of China. Trump's got the Chinese officials exactly where he wants them, on their knees with the economy really, really struggling. First time in a long time. Equity markets, well, as we await the outcome of the US-China trade talks, pretty neutral. Not a huge change in anything, despite those strong GDP numbers. Now, coming back to have a look at the major currency pairs, this is where you want to really piece together the potential opportunities going forward. Now, just on the face of it, we had yesterday, the Aussie, you can see it's sort of just broken down here through 71.20. Now, we had some strong CapEx numbers and saw it sort of top out at 71.70. The weaker Chinese numbers are starting to, this is where the correlation with the Aussie and Kiwi are really coming into play. It sort of dropped back down and was trading sideways on those Chinese numbers. Same with the Kiwi, okay, back to around 68.40. Then the second part of the move was the stronger US dollar on the back of the GDP. So you see that two components to the move here, two fundamental components, China the first part and the US the second part. But this goes to show you how highly volatile Aussie and Kiwi are with regards to the Chinese economy and data. So those trade talks hugely on the radar for Australia and New Zealand. And if anything, Aussie's just gone into a slightly bearish mode at this point. The Kiwi still riding on the sort of, it's got a little bit of momentum, well, not momentum, but residual positive sentiment from the RBNZ. That's offset some of the NBNZ business outlook numbers, which were quite weak as well. Now, dollar yen, like the positive GDP numbers, it screamed to the top side once again through 111.10. You can see it slightly paused there, had to think about it, and then charged higher. This move in dollar yen looks a bit more aggressive than the one we had the other day where it's slowly pulled back. So, you know what? I think dollar yen could be in for a move to the top side. Euro, we got this nice little gentle up move. It's now completely neutralised. It's now trading sideways straight through that trend line. There'll be a few cheeky stop losses here, but I can't see the euro doing anything unless we get some euro or US numbers. And funnily enough, we've got the euro CPI flash estimate today and employment numbers, and also we've got some the US PCE price index and a couple of other things as well. Now, Brexit looks like there's a little bit of a pause as the Brexit just continues. Now, it's just way too hard for my liking. There's no levels. The news is random. It's completely out of control. And dollar CAD pretty much trading sideways despite oil holding onto those strong gains around $57. So that's where we are with the majors. So you can sort of see what's going on, okay? It's pretty clear to me. Okay, the Aussie is breaking down. Okay, it's got a bit of negative sentiment. Kiwi overall still sideways. Dollar yen to the top side. Euro sideways. Or to me, sterling is sideways even though it's been going up. And dollar CAD sideways. So we've got a couple of pairs here to focus on. I'm just giving you a quick look at the news that's floating around. And as expected, it's pretty much geopolitical sort of based. You know, the summit talks with North Korea broke down. I think Kim Jong-un was wondering what the hell they were going to get. He wanted extra things if they nuclearize, whatever the hell it is. So we'll have to see how that plays out, but it's not a real big event just at the moment. The surprise GDP numbers were Brexit news for sterling, not much on dollar CAD. You know, they're saying investors buying loonies at month end. I mean, there's not a hell of a lot going on. So across the board, we aren't seeing too much news to shake down what's going down, okay, like what the current movements are. So if I come back and have a look at the MyFX Trading Hub, this is where you really want to piece together the potential opportunities. You're looking at your technicals, then you're coming back to focus on the upcoming releases, and that's where the major focus is. So if I just scroll down here, now we've got a couple of key situations sort of happening. Before I go into those aspects, okay, the majors, well, yeah, they're still sort of just drifting along. There's no substantial driver to really shake the US dollar up yet, and that's still making things a little bit tricky. The good thing is dollar yen does have a mildly up or bullish outlook. Sterling also, even though it's waning, it's purely on Brexit. And Aussie starting to feel the pinch. We've had some weak Aussie, or mixed Aussie data, I should say. I was going to say, or weak. The CapEx numbers were stronger, but the China situation is starting to weigh on the Aussie. And if you remember last week, we had the sort of looked like a rumour that China had banned coal imports, which is Australia's biggest export to China. That's why it's sort of lagging at this point. There's been no confirmation yet about that. And obviously the US-China trade talks continue. So to me, the Aussie is susceptible to a big move on the downside, and you can expect its little sidekick cousin there, the Kiwi, to follow. Now, this is where we get into some other potential events. And you look at what's coming out here. We've got a bit of a major flurry of activity. Now, there's a couple of really important things that you need to understand here. Now, we've got Fed Powell speaking. If I just scroll that up a touch, it's pretty soon. I think it's within the hour, just over an hour and 17 until the Fed chairman speaks. Now, this speech is about recent economic developments and longer-term challenges, right? That is actually quite on the money with what is important at the moment. So this speech, there's no Q&A expected. I've had a look at that. So there's no surprise stuff. So the speech will be measured. Now, Powell has been very good at keeping to the same stance, but he may highlight what they are worried about going forward. Obviously, trade issues is one thing, but he may reveal some other things, and that may do something to the dollar. So just be aware he is speaking, and he's the most important person in the whole financial market, so it is very important. You come into the a little bit after that, later in the Asian session, we've got I'm not going to try and pronounce it, the Caixin manufacturing numbers. This is on the back of yesterday's manufacturing stuff. These are weak again. You're going to see dollar China rally, and you should see Aussie and Kiwi come under further pressure. Now, then you come into the European session. It's going to be quite interesting, actually, because I know we've got the manufacturing numbers, so I'd expect these UK manufacturing numbers to be brushed aside, so I'm not really worried about those. If there's significant variance, you could see an impact, but it's a bit of a long shot. The euro, though, it is trading really sideways, and this is where the CPI flash estimate, the employment numbers are also coming out at the same time, could really come into play. So just be aware that there's potential activity on euro as you go through that European session. There's also German employment numbers before that too, so just keep an eye on those. Once again, if there's any significant variance in those numbers, you can expect it to move. In saying that, the German numbers are usually pretty much spot on. It's one of those just consistent things. Everyone goes to work and no one leaves. It's very similar to Japan almost. Now, then you come into some heavy hitting numbers. Now, CAD GDP and the PCE price index are two important numbers. Now, for CAD GDP, anything to do with overall productivity in the economy is important. So watch CAD. It's not. I don't think it's as explosive as the CPI numbers we had the other night, which were pretty much just a fraction weaker, but no major impact. If we do get a big move in the GDP, well, then obviously we'll see CAD move. But trading sideways, it could go either way. I don't really feel that impulsive to get into the trade as I did with the CPI a couple of days ago. Now, the PCE price index, this is often overlooked by many traders, but it is watched very closely by the Fed and also by bank traders. Now, this is a core inflation number. Okay, it measures the change in the price of goods and services purchased by consumers, excluding food and energy. So this is like the CPI numbers, okay, without food and energy. And what they're sort of really trying to measure is it's targeting consumers, consumables purchased by individuals. So it's actually a really important number. So if there's any significant variance in the PCE price index, this is the one number that could really put something under the US dollar and give it a real kick. Don't forget, short-term sentiment in the US dollar is up at the moment, so stronger numbers. We could see the US dollar close really strongly for the week. So make sure you keep an eye on that release. It's probably the most, well, to me, probably the most important number of the day. Of course, Fed Chairman Powell speaking. That's going to be have the markets on hold anyway. And then we go through a bunch of potential trading opportunities as we go forward. Now, if you connect the dots, what have we got here? Well, we know the manufacturing numbers here out of China have been cruising weak. We've got a bit of a downside momentum on the Aussie. That's a good match. So we get weak Chinese numbers. I think I'll be looking to sell some Aussie numbers, Aussie data, so Aussie dollars there on the back of that. UK, I know it's going up, but these numbers, Brexit is too loose for my liking. Euro, we really need some high variance to get that thing moving as well. Same with the CAD. So to me, the two clear opportunities, the Chinese numbers with the Aussie, and all the majors should be pretty active potentially with the PCE price index. Once again, we get strong numbers. That also works for a weaker Aussie dollar and potentially a stronger dollar yen as well. All right, guys, that's it from me. Have a good weekend. I'll see you in the 247 trade zone. We'll catch you later on. Cheerio.